This is the FlipNerd.com Expert Real Estate Investing Show, the show for real estate investors, whether you're a veteran or brand new. I'm your host, Mike Hambright, and each week I bring you a new expert guest that will share their knowledge and lessons with you. If you're excited about real estate investing, believe in personal responsibility, and taking control of your life and financial destiny, you're in the right place. Welcome to the FlipNerd.com Real Estate Investing Show. We're continuing our release of the top 10 shows for 2018. Every year we publish the top 10 list of some of our fan favorites and some of our own internal favorites that took place over the year. Today's show is with my pal Adrien Chabot, where he shares tips on how to double your wholesale profits. Now, most real estate investors focus on deal volume and doing more deals as a way to grow profits, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes there's some opportunities right in front of your face to increase your profits from deals that you already have without having to spend any more money on marketing. You're going to get a lot of value out of today's show. Let's go ahead and get it started. Hey, Adrien, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to talk about some of these things that we said we're going to talk about. For folks that listen to our show, they probably, if you listen to the show religiously, you gather that we have a little pre-meeting here is to talk about what we're going to talk about and catch up a little bit. So I'm excited to talk about how to squeeze more profits out of this market, because what's happening is some folks, their marketing costs are going up. They might have to pay a little bit more than we used to for houses. And so the question is, well, how do you not decrease your margins? Like, how can you make up for it? And I think a lot of people this is a very timely discussion because a lot of people are feeling that pinch. I
definitely felt that pinch, and the changes have definitely been worthwhile.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, before we get started with talking about what we're going to talk about here today, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background.
So I'm originally from Maine. I live in Indiana now, just south of Chicago in the Northwest quadrant. And I came to Indiana back in the late 90s for college. My background's in biology, and I got my undergrad and master's in biology. My first position, I managed a genetics lab up at the University of Chicago. So I was a lab geek. I got to play with Petri dishes and do some really cool stuff. I left that back in 2008 because it wasn't good money. I got into sales. I did insurance sales, door-to-door straight commission. So that was pretty fun. Great company. I loved what I did. I learned a lot. Did that for about 8 years. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be an investor. My uncle back in Maine had a bunch of small multifamily properties. I saw the passive income he had was getting every month. Like a lot of people, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, other books. I used to call myself a fantasy investor. And what I mean by that is I read a bunch about it. I went on Zillow all the time, and I looked at properties, and I'm like, man, if I bought this property, here's what the mortgage would be. I'm going to get $300 a month on top of the mortgage and passive income. And I did all this stuff, but I never had money to buy anything.
You just did it on paper?
On paper, and in my head.
Maybe we could create like a real estate investing
like a fantasy
league.
Yeah. And that's essentially, it was dreaming, it was good because it moved me towards where I wanted to be.
Right.
Passion was there. And then one of my insurance clients was a big time wholesaler in this area, and he had introduced me to wholesaling. So I did a ton of research on it on BiggerPockets and other websites. And initially I was turned off by it because if you go on any of those sites and you research wholesaling, you got people that hate it, people that love it. And it's, it's everything you read is true. There's good wholesalers, there's bad wholesalers. So at first I was turned off by it, but at the same time, I'm like, that's my intro into real estate without money.
Yep.
So as I'm doing my research, I'm like, there's got to be a way to do it ethically, morally, honestly. So I decided to build a company around that. In 2015, I just happened to be on Craigslist one night. I see a guy post a house for sale, called him up right away, met him the next day, put it under contract, sold it for a week later. I think I made like $7,500. And in November and December of 2015, I did 3 deals, all of them off Craigslist, and I made $20,000. I'm like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. And your day job was door knocking, door-to-door insurance sales, right?
Started at 10 a.m. and I went till 8 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
So, and I had 3 kids at the time that I wasn't seeing a lot because I was also traveling once a week for that. So I told my wife in January of 2016 that I was going full-time with this wholesaling thing.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
I bought a small absentee list of 250 people, and we literally hand wrote all of those yellow letters and sent them out. And then I found a couple of local people that I met off Bigger Pockets that I taught how to bird dog. And that was the benefit of doing the direct sales, is I knew what vacant houses were like. So I taught them how to look for, the overgrown landscaping, the little mini trees growing out of gutters, bad roofs. And over a 2-month period, we put together a list of about 700 houses that I continued to mail. So I worked my butt off those first 3-4 months. It was a grind, but I was making money. And towards the latter half of 2016, I came across 2 or 3 properties that I couldn't wholesale the traditional way. I had to close on them either because they were occupied or the owner wouldn't give me access. So I found someone local that lended on those and closed on them. And then we split the profit. Those 3 houses, we split a total of $110,000.
Wow.
And that person that lent is now my business partner. We got together in October of 2016. And then one of the very first things we did is we joined a mastermind, which at the time was phenomenal because there were so many things that we didn't know. So we didn't know about CallRail. We didn't know about CRM. We didn't know about all sorts of different systems that made everything really, really efficient.
Right.
It was the best $15,000 that we had spent at the time. 2017, we did 78 properties, and we're putting in systems now to hire more people, ramp everything up, and eventually not work as much in the business, but focus more on working on the business. Long-term goals is obviously, like most investors, is to continue to build up the passive income. I'm not so much interested in a bunch of single-family homes. I'm looking for more of the multifamily homes.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're focusing on right now.
Yeah. Awesome. So within a couple of years, you guys are probably on track to do over 100 deals a year. Is that right?
That's the goal this year.
Yeah. That's awesome.
A little bit behind schedule for that, but it's a tough market. Profits are way up, but the house count is a little bit down, but we'll hit it.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And of course you guys are part of my mastermind group now, the Investor Fuel group, which is, we just had our last meeting, and it was awesome to get to know you guys better there.
Yeah. It's good to be in a group where there's a bunch of other people crushing it as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's great, man. I think one of the messages I want to get across here to folks that are listening right now is you've been dabbling with it for a few years, but you guys really got serious last year. So, in the past, like 2.5 years or so, you've gone from, as you said, kind of playing in fantasy league to really what most people would consider the big leagues now, right? But based on your volume. And so hopefully that encourages people that are listening out there that coming in a more challenging market than we've seen. And, I've been an investor for a little over 10 years now. So more challenging market because of where we are in the market cycle. Right.
Right.
And you guys are still able to come in and crush it. I'm always inspired by people. A lot of veteran investors are whining, they kind of whine when in a market like this, like, oh, it's not as easy as it used to be. And then people come in and they don't have, I was once in that position. I didn't have any bad habits. I didn't know how it should have been or how it used to be. And you kind of always have that first couple of years when you're crushing it and you're new out of the gate is always inspiring, I think, to other people, because a lot of people question whether it can be done or does this even work in this market and things like that. Any kind of feedback to those people that are just getting started, I guess, maybe that based on the lessons that you've learned yourself?
When I was selling insurance, I did a lot of recruiting. A lot of new agents come in, and what I always taught them, and this was taught to me in previous sales careers, is it takes 3 things to be successful: work hard, study hard, and be coachable. So when I started work hard, I was at my office 8 o'clock every day, and I worked every single minute of the day. I didn't waste time on Facebook. If I wasn't talking to a seller, if I wasn't networking with a buyer, then I was reading a book, whether it was a leadership book, a real estate book. I was reading about stuff online, Bigger Pockets. As a wholesaler, you need to know everything. You need to know how people are making decisions when they're buying rentals, how they're making decisions for flips. So I kept reading and learning more. I networked a ton. I educated myself. So just go out there, work hard, study hard, be coachable, and things will get better. You're not going to become an expert overnight.
Yeah.
It took me a good 4, 5, 6 months before I felt comfortable and confident talking with sellers. But I worked hard enough to find the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the key to this business. Really, it's the key to being successful in anything is just focus and commitment, right? There's so many people that I say this all the time because I coach and mentor a lot of people in real estate, obviously, but a lot of people fail, but they give up before they even do a single deal. They just give up because they realize that it's harder work than what HGTV and a lot of other people would lead you to believe. And then you get into it and you realize, oh, this is harder than I thought. So let me just do something else, right?
I mean, I can remember the day very clearly. It was probably about 70, 75 days into when I consider having gone full time. And I had made good money. I did, I think up to that point, about 8 or 9 deals. Those deals were probably averaging 3,000 to 4,000 a deal. Nothing to brag home about,
Yeah.
but it still paid the bills. But mentally it was a grind. And I can remember sitting in my office kind of having like a come to Jesus moment, wondering if I had made the right decision.
Yeah.
I didn't have a ton of leads in the pipeline, so the future wasn't very positive. And I'm like, man, I can go back to the insurance where, even though it was straight commission, I had the system down where I knew I was getting guaranteed money every month. It was fairly easy to go out and make sales. So, in my head, I'm like, I can go back to that. It was easy. It's not what I want. Or I can focus, get committed on what I'm going to do here and, burn the bridges and not make it an option of going back. And that's what I decided to do. And literally like a week later, I fell into my biggest sale at that time.
Yeah. That's awesome. So stay committed. Awesome. So let's jump into the topic for today. We're talking about how to get your profits up on your deals, right? And so if you got to pay a little more for them, if you find you're spending a little bit more on marketing these days, there's 2 alternatives. One is just absorb those expenses, right, and make less money, or figure out a way to sell them for more. And kind of classically, I think a lot of us as real estate investors, we've always been taught how to kind of perform on the buy side. And on the sale side, like we just kind of said, well, if we buy it deep enough, like the rest will take care of itself, right? It's kind of always probably your philosophy too when you first started. And then when you start to realize like, hey, my margins are eroding here, you start thinking more about like, well, what can I do to sell them for more than I would in the past, right?
Yep.
So let's kind of dive in. I know one of the things, you've done a couple of pretty cool things to kind of get that in. Again, so let's talk about the first one, which is just kind of not taking your first offer necessarily.
So, and I started this a year later than I should, but I can remember back one of the first properties that we did in 2017, I sent it out to buyers at 35. One of the guys that looked, who's a really good buyer for me now, I didn't know him at the time. He looked, he's like, I'll get back to you in a day or two. I didn't hear from him. Someone else gave me the 35, so I closed with him. And this guy's like, man, after doing all my research, I would have given you 45. I'm like, well, you should have got back to me earlier. And over the course of last year, that came up several times. We're like, man, if you had given me more time or, I would have paid more. So I hesitate to change things. My partner had been like, man, we got to figure out a way to do this a different way. So what we started to do, instead of putting it out at, say, 70,000 and taking the first offer, because what started to happen towards the end of last year is buyers that used to beat me down on price were putting offers in sight unseen at full price within 10 minutes of me sending it out. And I'm like, man, if they're willing to pay that now, I know I'm leaving money on the plate.
Right.
So what we decided to do, and we started this in January this year, is I'd send out a property, let's say on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock. I'd send it out Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock at, say, $70,000. I would give everybody at least 48 hours to go look at the property now. So someone can go look Tuesday at 11 o'clock, put in an offer at 70, but they know, because I've trained them, that I'm not going to review offers until the deadline, which is at least 48 hours later. So that lets many people go and look at the property. It gives agents, I have a bunch of agents that are on my buyers list. It gives them time to contact their investors, go look at the property. And then everybody has to have offers in by, if I send it out Tuesday morning, offers need to be in by Thursday at 3. And what this does is they're sending in highest and best. So if I send it out at 70, I'm getting offers at 75, 80, 85, because part of it is fear of missing out. Some of the investors have put in lowball offers on properties that they really wanted from me.
Right.
They didn't get it because someone put in a higher offer. So now they're putting in an offer. It still makes sense for them where they're going to make money, but it's higher than the number that I put it out there at.
Yeah, that's awesome. It kind of it's like an auction, but you're not bidding back and forth. You're just it's like I guess kind of what they refer to as a blind auction, right? So
It
put
is.
in your best price and we'll see if you're the best. And if you're not, we're not going to give you a chance to come up. Like you've got one opportunity, put your best foot forward.
People
Yeah.
ask me that all the time. Hey, if I'm not the highest offer, can you contact me and have me, give me an opportunity to increase my offer? And I'm like, no, because on our average property, we're getting 8, 10, 12 offers.
Right.
I'm not an auctioneer going to go back and forth and try to bid them up. I'm like, give me your highest and best. If you're the highest offer, then you can have it.
Yep.
And it's made a huge difference in our profits this year.
That's great, and you're right. And this is a market where you can do that, right? If it's what you said exactly, the fear of missing out.
It's annoyed some of my good buyers that we're used to doing it a certain way. As humans, we don't like change. We fight it. So when they're used to getting a property, being able to put a offer in at full asking without seeing it, and now they have to actually go look at it and evaluate their numbers, they're not happy.
Yeah.
But I understand that right now houses are at a premium. There's not a lot of inventory for houses that make good flips or good rentals. And I have those houses, and we're paying a lot more for the houses. Our marketing budget has probably doubled this year. Our pay-per-click used to be $60 a click. We're at $200 a click.
Right. Yeah.
Just that alone.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not, and the thing is you're not forcing anybody to pay the price. You're just instilling that fear that they might miss out unless they put their best foot forward. And so they don't have to bid, right? They don't have to put in an offer.
In the market that we're in, lowball offers, whether it's on the MLS or through a wholesaler, it just doesn't work right now because there's so many people willing to pay more.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for, is that person that will pay more.
Yep. If you're an active real estate investor already doing deals and looking to double or triple your business, you should consider joining the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. We're a small group of investors that share our best practices, tips, and tricks with one another in an effort to all win. We limit our membership to only 1 to 2 members per market, so everyone shares their knowledge, tips, and tricks openly and honestly. Our members include some buying 1 to 2 houses a month, up to some of the most respected investors and leaders in the real estate investing industry, some of which have personally done over 1,000 deals. If you'd like to be considered for our invitation-only world-class mastermind, please visit investorfuel.com to request your personal invitation. Our next meeting is coming up quickly. Go to investorfuel.com now to learn more.
$200 a click.
Right. Yeah.
Just that alone.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not, and the thing is you're not forcing anybody to pay the price. You're just instilling that fear that they might miss out unless they put their best foot forward. And so they don't have to bid, right? They don't have to put in an offer.
In the market that we're in, lowball offers, whether it's on the MLS or through a wholesaler, it just doesn't work right now because there's so many people willing to pay more.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for, is that person that will pay more.
Yep. So talk a little bit about, so I know you guys have a fairly active meetup group.
Yep.
Club, and I know that's helped you build your buyers list and kind of build your reputation. So talk about that impact that it's had on your business and maybe how that could help other people too.
Yeah, so I started that club back, and it's just like a RIA, but we're not part of the national organization. I started that back last year in January, and the reason I started was twofold. One, I like teaching, I like educating, I like mentoring people, so it gave me a platform to do that every month. And secondly, obviously it's branding. It puts us out there in front of investors. So our first meeting that we did January of 2017, we had 15 people there. Yeah. And, as we're doing this meeting, I'm like, man, was this a good idea? Because it takes a ton of time, a ton of energy.
For sure, yeah.
To put it all together. But we average about 85 people a meeting. And we do it once a month, just like any other group. And it's just been a great way to meet new buyers, build our brand. The speakers that we bring in are phenomenal. It's a meeting where all the speakers come in. They're not selling their junk. They're teaching about a specific real estate topic. We do a ton of networking. It's just been a great event to be able to give back and teach and mentor.
And do you bring, in those events, I know there's some groups that bring deals to the group. But the problem I've always had with that, do you do that or?
We have an opportunity at the end of the meeting for anybody to present a deal that they have.
Yeah.
So I don't do a ton of presenting there because I don't want it to seem like the group's all about me.
Right.
It's the same brand that we have. I didn't mention this, but we have a brand for buying houses from people, and then we have a brand from selling houses to people.
Okay.
So 2 separate websites, 2 separate Facebook groups. So on the sell side, that's the same brand that we do the monthly group through. So they're seeing my emails for properties. They're seeing the properties on the same website that has the group information. So that's already putting it out in front of people.
Yeah. Because I found there's some groups that like say, well, we'll bring our deals to the group, but I'm like, well, what if you get a deal like the day after a meeting? You're not going to hang on to it for a month until your next meeting. So like the buy and sell side of this business needs to be like 24/7 kind of fluid, not like, well, let me hold on to it until we have a meeting. Yeah, it was always a little weird.
The biggest thing was the group with, there's a group in this area that is part of the national group. A lot of the speakers they bring in, they give you a really good topic, but then they're selling it. To get the meat and potatoes, you have to buy the program. And it was frustrating. So I wanted a group that had really good speakers. Most of the speakers are local people that are doing stuff currently. They're active investors or active attorneys or, active property managers. The last guy that spoke, he's on pace to do 50 flips this year. And he talked about how he increases the value on his property so he can get top dollar for that. And
that's awesome.
It's
so what's the name of your club, your group?
Invest NWI.
For Northwest Indiana, I assume. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. So we'll add a link.
That's the buy side. And region, if you're familiar with the Bears, the region, Mike Ditka.
Yeah.
So that's how we name that, because the nickname of this area is the region.
Yeah.
So the region home buyers. And then on the sell side, it's Invest NWI. So that's how we do the wholesale deals. That's all of our mentoring, and the monthly program is all through Invest NWI.
Awesome. So I know another thing you've done that we were talking about is a lot of people just say, I'm just going to build my list. And we just you have this nameless, faceless list, this big email list that you're kind of blasting people to. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes it's hard to build relationships with people. You just don't know who they are and what they're even looking for. And so I know you've made some efforts to actually kind of get to know your buyers a little better, what they're looking for. And honestly, sometimes that helps you do a deal you wouldn't do otherwise, right? Because you're like, I can't really pay that much for it, but I know somebody that really wants this area, and if they're willing to pay a little bit more, maybe I could make it happen. But talk about that kind of relationship building side with your buyers list.
Yeah. So a lot of times people think that this is just a numbers business. Hey, I got to go buy a house at 70% minus ARV minus my wholesale fee, and then I'll email it out to all these people that I've signed up, and people will, just come and buy. But keep in mind, there's a huge obstacle that you have to overcome, is that most wholesalers are distrusted and they're not looked at as professionals. And honestly, I get emails from other wholesalers that deals aren't deals. So to overcome that, I understand this is a people business. People do business with people that they like and trust. Well, how do they like and trust you if they don't know you? So the reason I've gained 25 pounds since I started wholesaling is I meet investors all the time. Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, wherever. And, a nice Boston cream donut goes a long way. But, I'm building that relationship with me. They see me, I see them. You're building that trust. It took, I just had a guy that I met when I got started in 2015. He hates wholesalers. He's one of my better buyers now, because he likes me, he trusts me, he knows that the deals I send out are good deals that he's going to make money on. But it took a long time of building that relationship with him. Another big thing too is this is almost like a reverse wholesaling thing that we can do. Is going back a year ago, 2 years ago, it was very easy to get a house under contract using the traditional formulas. But now with the market being as tight as it is, and some of the communities I'm buying in, you're not buying a house at 70% minus ARV minus your wholesale. You just can't get the houses that low anymore. So by spending the time networking with the buyers, understanding how they're making their buying decisions, it allows me to go target houses that they're going to buy at higher prices than I normally would have.
Right.
For example, I just had a closing today. I was the agent for it. It was a house that I couldn't buy to wholesale. So I listed it so we could still monetize the lead. And it was in an area where I don't do a lot of purchasing there. So I wasn't quite sure what someone would spend on a house like this. So listing it doesn't cost me any money. So the guy owed 45. I listed it at 55 and I ended up selling it to one of my buyers. And during the time that it was listed, I got a ton of feedback from other buyers that had looked at it. So now I realize in this market, in that community, I can go buy houses just like that are going to sell for 50 to 55. So by knowing what my buyers are buying, what they're willing to pay, I can now go find stuff for them and pay more than my formulas or my gut feeling is telling me that I should pay.
Yeah, and buyers move so fast that there's something to be said for, hey, you can get a house under contract and we're honest with sellers, like that's a little more than we would normally pay for it, but if you kind of give me, effectively you don't say it this way, but let me get it under contract and let me go market it for a few days and see if I can make anything happen. And if I can't, then I'm just going to terminate the contract and we'll be right back where we are now. Just give me a week and see what happens,
Yep.
So you don't say it like that, right? But fundamentally, that's kind of what you're doing is like, let me go see if I can make something happen. And if not, then I'll talk about plan B.
Yep. I mean, we closed, when I started wholesaling, one of the biggest things that you read about is, wholesalers putting houses under contract and then they don't close on it. They're essentially lying to the seller about being the one who's actually going to buy it. And I wanted to build a company on honesty and integrity.
Yeah.
So when I got started, my cash offer was so stupid low that if they took it, I knew I could find someone that would lend on it and we'd close on it. And if that didn't work for me, then if that cash offer didn't work for the seller, then I'd be like, look, I know other investors that, whether they're doing the work themselves or their exit strategy is different, they're going to pay more. So why don't we do this? We'll put the house under contract at the number that you want. That way we can start title work, make sure that there's no issues. I'll bring in the buyers. I'll do all the legwork. I'll show them the house, and then they'll pay me on top of that. But you get what you want. And I did that. And that's how I got my first, 6, 7, 8 deals done. They knew exactly what I was doing, so I felt good about it. And even now there's times where because of their mortgage or the condition, my cash offer doesn't make sense. So I'll do the same thing. Hey, let's put it under contract at the price that works for you. I have a massive network of cash buyers I can show this to. Maybe one of them will give you your price, plus a little bit on top for me to make it worth my time. And at the end of the day, as long as you're solving that seller's problem and helping them get from point A to point B, they don't really care what you're going to make on top of it.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I think the important thing is exactly what you said is don't ever mislead somebody. You don't want to be that guy that is locking up contracts all over town that truthfully you paid so much that nobody's gonna buy it from you.
Right.
And telling the seller, not letting them know that you have that you might cancel the contract if you can't find somebody. And so we've had people over the years for sure call us and say, I have it under contract with somebody, but they're not answering their phone and we don't know where they're at. They're not performing. Right. And then, we go in and clean up those messes sometimes, but yeah, that is, pardon my French, that is a shitty thing to do to a seller. Say that again.
You probably got that house under contract for a lot less than that first person did anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk a little bit more about the building relationships with buyers. So it's easy to say I build relationships to kind of learn what they want, but is there a kind of tactical way, not to take anything away from being genuine, but kind of a way to set aside time to get to know people? Because we all get so busy in our lives that it sounds nice that I want to do that, but I just never get to it. I mean, is there anything that you do that you can share with listeners as to how you dedicate time or take time to go build those relationships?
Yeah, so I read a book, and I do a lot of reading. My goal this year is to read 24 books. I don't remember which book this was in, but the idea was never eat alone, and I think that might have actually been the title.
Yeah, there's a book that's called Never Eat Alone. Yeah,
that could have been it. So I'm eating. I'm probably having a snack in the morning, coffee and donuts. I'm eating lunch. Some nights I'm doing dinner. So I was very intentional about inviting people to lunch, dinner, whatever. I scheduled time in my calendar when I got started to meet with investors. So my goal was every week I want to meet, whether it's just coffee, a quick, a soda, whatever. I wanted to meet with 3 to 5 investors every single week.
That's great.
So I did that. And then same thing, if they couldn't meet in person, because I have a lot of investors that are out of state, I try to spend, get them on the phone for 30 minutes and pick their brain. And the idea is you kind of give and take. You want to be able to help them out. So the idea with meeting with them is, hey, my job is to go and find properties that fit what you're looking for. Help teach me what you're looking for, how you're making those decisions. That way I can go find your properties.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's how I learned about how they, make their decisions on rehabbing and what they're going to fix. I'd also encourage people, if they're not doing rehabs, to do one or two. Partner with someone on it, because you're going to learn a whole lot about the process by actually doing it yourself.
No doubt.
I learned that I don't want to do any more rehabs.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's a great tip. Is if you're doing, if like you said, you're during meals, well, you're going to do it anyway. I kind of teach people the same thing. In fact, I have a bunch of coaching and mentoring students that I just gave kind of a presentation on this. Is use your platform or use your time that you're already doing, things that you're already doing. Don't go try to create new time to make it up. So if you have, for example, if you have a group like yours, a meetup group, or even if you don't have one, if you're a member of one, just say, hey, I'm going to this group. Is there any way you can come meet me there and we can chat? Just kind of use what you're already doing as a way to leveraging your time, right? If you have an appointment across town in 20 minutes, then just say, hey, I'm free right now for the next 15 minutes. Can you jump on a call and talk a little bit? And kind of, because you're driving in the car anyway, your options are listening to some news that's going to bring you down, or, spend some time in a productive way, right?
Exactly. Another big thing that I do, and this kind of falls into the networking with the buyers thing, is a lot of times a wholesaler will sell a house or a property and then just kind of wash their hands of it. I'm always following up with the buyers. What did they do to the property?
Oh, that's awesome.
If it's someone who flipped it, I'm looking at the listing pictures. I'm talking with them about it, because I'm in the property and I have an idea on the rehab in my head. But it's what surprises did you see? What did you do? How much did you put into it? And that really helped me become better at, one, buying the houses and also selling them, to know what the end result was.
Yeah, that's one of my regrets. We have hundreds of houses purchased, and I never really kept track of what happened, because in any of that, when we rehab, obviously I know what happened, but when we wholesale, I just didn't spend the time. I could have had VAs or somebody say, hey, in 60 days or 90 days, go look at this, go see if the house was listed or what's happened. And so in hindsight, I wish that I had kept, because we make an estimate on what we think the ARV is, right? And so it'd be interesting over time to see, here's what we thought it was. Because I think what's happened actually is people often sold them for more than what we thought the ARV was, just because we're generally kind of conservative.
Right.
And, I've had a couple people say, oh, you thought it was going to be worth this. I've had a couple people say this. Yeah, we sold it for $30,000 more. And I'm like, oh, I'm happy for you. That means I left some money on the table, right?
Yeah. I don't actually give ARVs a lot anymore, because then you're putting a ceiling on what the house is worth. And
right.
So many investors right now are pushing the market that if you tell them the house is worth 200, well, they're going to run all of their numbers at the 200 and put an offer in based off that, right, even though they know in their head they're going to sell it for 225, 240.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Adrien, this is great stuff. So we kind of shared a whole bunch of stuff today on what people can do to kind of squeeze more profits out of their deals. If folks listening to this and this is a bunch of great stuff, they've got a bunch of notes, they're like, this, I'm a little bit overwhelmed, what's kind of the one thing they should take away from this and maybe go apply to their business today?
The number one thing I would recommend someone to do is call one of their buyers and chat with them for 30 minutes about what they're doing.
Awesome.
Really building that buyer's list and learning what they want and making that relationship.
Awesome. Good stuff. Cool, man. So if folks want to learn more about you, I know you mentioned a couple of your club website. Tell us the URL for that so people get to investnwi.com.
That's the website for the wholesale deals.
Yeah.
We just built it out. It'll probably be up in the next week or so. It's investnwigroup.com. That's for our monthly group.
And by the way, if you guys haven't picked up on it yet, for NWI, he did say up front, he's in Northwest Indiana, kind of right around the corner of the lake from Chicago. So awesome, man. Appreciate your time today.
No, it's awesome. Thanks for the invite.
This is good stuff, everybody. I hope you learned a lot from this. This was episode number 424, and some great nuggets here. If you kind of tuned out for a second, you might want to go back and listen to some great nuggets on how to squeeze more profit out of your deals. Guys, if you haven't yet, please go out to Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen to us at, even YouTube, and subscribe and give us a positive rating. We appreciate it. After hundreds of episodes, I can promise you, other than spending time with my friends like Adrien here, that's the only other thing that fuels me is adding value. And the way that I know I'm adding value, that we're adding value, is by your ratings and reviews and subscriptions. So appreciate that. Everybody, we'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day. If you're an active real estate investor already doing deals and looking to double or triple your business, you should consider joining the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. We're a small group of investors that share our best practices, tips, and tricks with one another in an effort to all win. Real estate investing can be a lonely business for successful real estate investors, but it doesn't have to be. Investor Fuel members meet 4 times a year, but we talk to each other 365 days a year, and we focus on improving the profitability of our businesses, improving the quality of our lives. That's why we do this, right? And making an impact on those around us so we can truly leave a legacy. We limit our membership to only 1 to 2 members per market, so everyone shares their knowledge, tips, and tricks openly and honestly. Our members include some buying 1 to 2 houses a month, up to some of the most respected investors and leaders in the real estate investing industry, some of which have personally done over 1,000 deals. If you'd like to be considered for our invitation-only world-class mastermind, please visit investorfuel.com to request your personal invitation. Our next meeting is coming up quickly. Go to investorfuel.com now to learn more. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the FlipNerd.com Investing Show. If you're not yet a member of FlipNerd, you're missing out. We have tons of great training, including a new detailed masterclass published each month and live training webinars with experts twice a month. Plus, you'll get access to all of our archives, where we already have a growing library of masterclasses and other training videos. Members also get membership in our incredible online mastermind group, where many of the top real estate investors from across the country, including many of the hundreds of guests I've had on the show in the past, are already members. Whether you're brand new, looking to get started, or a veteran, you simply must join today. I promise you won't be disappointed. To learn more or join today, please visit flipnerd.com. That's flipnerd.com. See you on the next show.